President Trump now moving forward on a reported plan to get a giant gift for his administration, I guess personally, politically, but then ultimately for himself through his library. This is a plan to take not $1 million gift or a $10 million thing, but actually $400 million of value from a foreign government through the value of a jet. It is egregious. It is possibly illegal if Congress doesn't approve it. You might remember all that talk about the Constitution and the Emoluments Clause. But bottom line, there are also figures on the right who are concerned because, separate from the ethics and the obvious security implications, which we'll get to, this just looks really bad, greedy, thirsty even. So here's the plane. It's from the royal family of Qatar. It is a luxury Boeing 747 jumbo jet. The Trump administration says they would take this jet that you're seeing certain pictures of as a gift, and they would turn it into an Air Force One. And then they would keep it. So they'd use it for a few years. That's the plan that we have according to the reporting. But then Donald Trump would get it afterward as a private citizen. And the way they're finagling that is they say through his library, presidential library, but bottom line, if he's allowed to fly around on the $400 million jet from the foreign government and only gave it to him because he was president of your country, which is supposed to be a public interest position, well, it all looks pretty unseemly. There are questions here about national security, about the constitutional ban on gifts, which back in the day they called emoluments. The idea was, even then they knew that foreign governments with budgets and largesse could try to separate the leader of a country who's supposed to look out for the country, for you, separate that obligation from the leader's personal situation and throw a bunch of money or gifts at him, or him or her. So remember, the Emoluments Clause says Congress would have to approve this kind of thing. We are in Trump land, and they've been testing everything in the courts, but the concerns are piling up.
Mr. President, what do you say to people who view that luxury jet as a personal gift to you? Why not leave it behind?
You should be embarrassed asking that question. They're giving us a free jet. I could say, no, don't give us. I want to pay you $1 billion or $400 million or whatever it is. Or I could say, thank you very much.
You'll notice there's not much of a substantive addressing of the issues there. He just says, he redescribes that it's a gift. Of course, the larger the gift you get, the more in debt you are. Money in politics is strictly regulated, and politicians, including in the White House, who've gone down the road of taking too many gifts, have usually faced consequences. Long before Watergate, President Nixon was in so much trouble over taking what was then about $18,000 in gifts, not $400 million, that he had to give this address. You might recall it. They called it the Checkers speech. This was back in the early 50s. The dog that was also part of the gift was named Checkers, and he found a way, as politicians do, to get us talking then and now about Checkers. I couldn't resist showing you that lovely historical dog. But the comparison is, here, we're not talking about a few $1,000s, which then was big enough to be a scandal in a national address. We are talking about hundreds of millions of dollars that Donald Trump, you saw his response there, doesn't deny. He says he'll take it, he'll benefit from it, and how dare anyone be mad about it? Of course, the problem is, if people are taking this level of gift, which some call graft, right, then the question is, what do you owe back? And is it a bribe if you give something back? The Attorney General says it's fine with her. The opposition party, the Democrats, call it flying grift and wildly illegal. That's a quote. Of course, whether this is illegal under the Constitution or other laws will have to be debated. One thing we haven't usually seen is any president try to do this. So I don't have a Supreme Court case to cite for you tonight about what happens if you take, I don't know, a jet. And if you could take one jet, can you take 5? Can they give jets to every member of the Trump family? MAGA leaders don't think this is good politics, that's for sure. Laura Loomer, who's been welcomed by President Trump during this new term to the White House, says this is a stain. And here is a very prominent conservative who's been very supportive of Trump in the campaign days, Ben Shapiro, weighing in.
Like, please define America first in a way that says you should take sacks of cash from the Qatari royals. Is it good for draining the swamp and getting things done? The answer is no, it isn't. It isn't. If you want President Trump to succeed, this kind of skeezy stuff needs to stop.
Quote, skeezy, that's the review as they're sort of floating the story from a very MAGA-friendly commentator there, Mr. Shapiro. So that's on the right. That's some of the reaction. Trump himself happens to be heading to the Middle East today, visiting Qatar, along with Saudi Arabia and the UAE. We should also note here the Trump Organization, which continues to run with a tie to not only Donald Trump, but his family members, is striking deals to the tune of billions, more than even one jet, across those very countries, as the Wall Street Journal reports. There is a lot more to this story, but those are the highlights and some of the legal background. And because it's a big breaking story, I want to get right in to our guest tonight, who is, I should say, one of the foremost experts in this space of ethics. Norm Eisen co-founded CREW, Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, a nonpartisan group that has a stellar record of going after any such graft conflicts of interest, no matter the party. He's a Brookings Senior Fellow. He was the ethics czar to President Obama. You could see them in the Oval Office. Richard Painter, a Republican ethics counterpart, recently said the Obama years were a high water mark of exactly avoiding these kind of conflicts, not even going near them. Thanks for being here, Norm.
Thanks for having me back, Ari.
Yes, sir. Before we get into all the details, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being, you took a free drink at a mixer, it's under the legal gift limit, and 10 being one of the worst types of White House corruption issues you've ever seen. Where does this rank, first of all, just for folks who are trying to make sense of this?
11. This is the worst scandal. Not only emoluments force one. We've learned a new term for emoluments. It was an 18th century term for anything of value to a president. Skeezy. Maybe they'll rewrite the Constitution with the skeezy clause, Ari. The plane is the tip of the iceberg, as your graphic just showed. The crypto conflicts are enormous as well, and also a vehicle for foreign governments to invest, with the UAE putting $2 billion into one of the Trump organizations, the World Financial Enterprise, that lists Donald Trump on its website. This is the worst corruption and conflict scandal that we've seen, and the plane just illustrates it.